TellyCast.
Hi, I'm Justin Crosby, and welcome to a new season of TellyCast. We kick off the new year with a country focus on Austria, and I'm in Vienna for CIMIx, the industry event organised by trade promotion organisation Advantage Austria. My guests on this week's show are Dinah Czezik-Muller Co-CEO at factual indie Terra Mater Studios, Philipp Böechheimer Managing Director at CANAL Austria, Alexander Dumreicher-Ivanceanu, Chairman of the Austrian Professional Association for the Film and Music Industry, Isabelle Welter of drama indie WeFilm, and consultant Tony Gregory, as we delve into the recent changes in the Austrian content industry. Plus, later on in the show, I catch up with Realscreen's Barry Walsh on what to expect at Realscreen Summit in Austin, Texas, where we'll also be recording a show next week. It's all coming up on this week's TellyCast. So I'm here in Vienna. It's a beautiful sunny day in January. We're here in the heart of Europe. I'm at the offices of Advantage Austria, the Austrian Internationalization and Innovation Agency, where the first ever CIMIx is taking place. And we've got delegates here from the Austrian and international content industry, including buyers, sellers, producers, rights holders, distributors, film commissions and funding institutions. And my first guest of the first TellyCast of 2023 is Alexander Dumreicher-Ivanceanu, Chairman of the Austrian Professional Association of the Film and Music Industry, to tell us a little bit more about the changes in the Austrian TV industry which have just happened at the turn of the year. Alexander, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's great to be here, and it's great to have you as our very first guest of 2023. First of all, tell our listeners about CIMIx and what this event is, because it's the first ever edition of CIMIx. Tell us about it.
Yes, the general idea is to make the connection between the Austrian film industry and the international film industry. Austria has a wide range of creators, of directors, crew, cast that is internationally known. And since the 1st of January of this year, so just 10 days from here, we have a new incentive that is going to boost the film production and also post-production in Austria. So when it became clear last year in autumn that the government would go for this new incentive and that the parliament would be ready to pass it, which then happened in December, we decided here at the Chamber of Commerce, together with the Austrian Business Organization, to organize this event. And the goal is really to make, let's say, to open the doors for the future of the Austrian film and music and post-production industry.
One of the things that we did on TellyCast, particularly during lockdown, not so much recently, but it's something that I really want to get back to doing, is talking about local markets and bringing them to life a little bit more and learning a little bit more about the Austrian TV industry landscape. Can you give us a sense of scale and, specialities, for example, for the Austrian TV industry?
Well, I'm the chairman of the Austrian Film and Music Association here at the Chamber of Commerce. I can give you the figures for the overall industry.
Yeah, perfect.
So that's film and music both together. So film, television, music, audiovisual post-production. So there are 7,500 companies in Austria. Let's say 1/3 of them are into sound and music, and 2/3 of them are into film. And 40% of those companies are here in Vienna, 60% are also outside of Vienna in Austria. We have about 20,000 people working as employees in the film and music industry in Austria, which makes it a more and more important and ever growing part of Austria's economy. Even though we had, of course, very problematic times with COVID in the last years, our industry is growing. So we encounter at around 500 new companies every year. So we were around 6,200 companies before COVID, and now 3 years later we are up to we are now 7,500 companies. So as you can see, it's growing. There are more and more creative people working in Austria in this industry. That's a good basis for the times to come.
So most of the industry, when we're talking about TV industry, is based in Vienna. Is that right to say? Or are there other key local markets as well within Austria?
Well, as I said, Vienna has around 40% of the companies, but I would say we have very interesting companies and films being made in Lower Austria, in Salzburg, in Tyrol, in Styria, in Carinthia. So there are other regions of Austria where you have very interesting companies. And of course you have the landscape. So you have the cities, you have the landscape. Austria is a very, let's say, colorful country with the cities, with Vienna in its center, but with other interesting cities, with the landscapes, with the lakes, with the mountains.
Yeah.
So I think there is a lot what can be filmed here.
How about studios then, in terms of studio complexes? Where would we find most of those?
There is no studio at the moment, but this is going to change. We have the HQ7 studio project, which has been presented 20 minutes ago just here. It's going to be built in Vienna. So this year, it's the construction year, and it's going to open in January, February 2024. It's going to be a green studio, because it's located at the port, at the Danube port of Vienna, and there is a huge solar farm there, and so the studio will be able to use solar energy for its needs, and I think that's a very important thing, because we want our industry to become green, climate friendly. That's a very important part of this new incentive that is operating now for about 10 days. It's a green incentive with the bonus system for climate friendly productions. And I believe that's a very, very important part of Austria's industry, but also the knowledge and the future, because things have to change in our lives, in each and any industry, but also in the film industry.
Yeah, well, that's right. We can just see the lack of snow on the slopes in January as a great example of that and a reminder of that.
Yes, Austria is one of the best examples. I mean, we have been putting so many electricity and heat into our slopes in the last years that we have unfortunately contributed to the climate change.
It's crazy,
and the
isn't
more artificial snow you put on the slopes, the faster the climate change is coming. So that's one of those paradoxical interventions of economy. And I believe that the film industry can really be a game changer here, because it's not only that we can change the way we produce our films, it's also because we are known, we are seen, actors, directors, film people, we are broadcasted, we are in the cinemas, we are on festivals. So I believe it's also important that we show that things can change.
Yeah. You're in pole position as storytellers to be able to bring that to the public and help bring around change. Give us some examples of maybe the most notable international successes then, coming back to the TV industry, by Austrian content businesses.
The last years have been very, very successful. There were films like Hinterland by Stefan Rosowitzki, who won the Audience Award in Locarno, followed by Sonne by Kutwin Ayub, who won one of the main awards for newcomers at the Berlin Festival last year. There was Great Freedom by Sebastian Meise, an Austrian director who won at un certain regard in Cannes. And of course, there's Corsage by Marie Kreutzer, a film about Sissi, the Empress, starring Vicky Krieps, that has won the main actress award in Cannes last year, and it's now in the race for hopefully for the Oscars. We will know more in a few weeks, but it's shortlisted or longlisted for the Oscar nomination. So there is a very, very strong presence of Austrian films on the international level. Same for broadcast and TV series. Last week there was the new episodes of Vienna Blood by Robert Dornheim, directed by Robert Dornheim, that was broadcast in Austria. That's an English and German spoken TV series, very successful also in English speaking countries. So we have the creativity here and we have the international success. And now this is going to meet new financing possibilities, and that's exactly why we are here at the moment.
So my assumption, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that previously most of the output in terms of exports of Austrian TV content, did that mainly go to other German-speaking territories within Europe? Is that in the main where producers are making shows and actually getting them sold in for 3 or 4 markets?
There is, of course, a long tradition for working with the German-speaking countries. This is Germany, but also Switzerland. So especially in the TV business, of course, there is a lot of crime shows that are co-produced with either Germany or Switzerland. There are many event movies being made together between the three countries. But at the same time, and especially in the last, let's say, 10 years, we have really enlarged our audience. And Austrian films and Austrian talent is now working in French-speaking, in English-speaking territories. The films and the TV series are sold way beyond the German-speaking territories. So I would say this is one of the unique selling proposals of Austrian creativity, that the international outcome and also the international presence of our directors and talent is certainly bigger than for other countries with 9 million inhabitants.
Right. 9 million inhabitants. That's worth remembering. That's not even the population of London. So it's an interesting thing to remember, that you're punching way above your weight.
It's a small country in the center of Europe with a really high output on films and TV series that are internationally seen.
Yeah. So tell us about this new tax incentive then. Let's focus on that a little bit. What is the incentive for international businesses to work with Austria? Because I think it's very important this year, producers all around the world, international producers, as the market cools down a little bit, streamers are spending less money, networks are spending less money. So producers, particularly drama producers, are looking to co-produce more than ever. And so tax incentives are going to be ever more important. So tell us about the offer that Austria has.
Well, this new incentive has been developed in really close collaboration with the industry, which is very good. It was developed here at the Chamber of Commerce together with the group of producers and film people, and it was developed in 2021. And then last year in 2022, we went into negotiations with the parliament and with the government. And I must say, we were really welcomed with open arms, which was very, very important. The Secretary of State, Andrea Meyer, for Culture and the Arts, she immediately saw the potential of such an incentive, and so did the Minister for Financial Affairs and also the Minister for Economy and the Minister for Media. Both of them, Andrea Meyer, the Secretary of State for Culture, and Susanne Raab, the Minister for Media Affairs, will be here today, and we will present it together for the first time to a larger audience of the industry. So it was really a close collaboration, and I'm super happy that the Parliament passed it in December with a large majority, really large majority. So I believe Austria, the parliament, politics, the industry is really standing with and behind this law and this project. And big thank also to the funding institutions who made it possible within really just a few weeks to have the regulations online, so you can really find everything online since a few days. It's already working. It's opérationnel, as one would say in French, which is really good. The basis is a 30% incentive or refund of each and any cost that is spent in Austria. That's like the basis of it. And there is a 5% plus if the film is produced as a green film. And that can be either on the Austrian protocol of green producing, but negotiations are underway that international protocols will also be accepted or will work together closely with the Austrian green producing protocol. So that means if you spend 1 million euros in Austria, you will get an automatic incentive of 300,000 euros. And if it's a green film, and we hope that there will be many green films, there is an additional 50,000 euros bonus that you can use for green producing, but that you can, if you spend less on green producing because your production is well made and has a high regional, let's say, effect, then you might also be able to use it for the screen and put the money on the screen. The important thing is that this applies for cinema films, for TV, for streaming. It also applies for post-production. That means music. We have a huge music industry in Austria, of course. Sound, VFX, and animation. It applies for co-productions, for productions of Austrian films and producers, but also for service production. So this is really a large field of action where we are moving in. With the green bonus, it's the first incentive in Europe. So really, it really is a game changer. And what is also very important for international producers and film people, there is no cap. And that means there are no deadlines. You can come whenever your financing is ready. The answer will be there within 7 weeks, so it's fast. And there is no cap. That means there is no race between projects. You don't have to come on the 3rd of January to be certain that you can make this project in Austria. Whenever your project is ready and whenever it's sufficiently financed, we can apply.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds, like it covers a lot of bases and it sounds very generous. And presumably the studio complex that you mentioned is part of that investment by the Austrian government to kind of supercharge this area. So next year, producers can come to Austria, film using your studios, and then take advantage of all of those benefits. So that sounds fantastic. Now, you're also a producer, aren't you, Alexander? So tell us about your business and what you're working on.
My company is named Amour Fou. It was founded in 1995, 28 years ago. The two founders were Buddy Mink and myself.
So you're a veteran of the Austrian
I'm a dinosaur. Here you listen to a dinosaur. We founded the company, Buddy Mink and myself, in 1995, and in Austria and Luxembourg. So the company has 2 head offices, and we have produced over 100 films in those 27 years. And we are specializing in European auteur cinema, art house cinema, and also working in the fields of documentary.
What's your most recent project that you're working on or has hit screens recently?
We are working on a film on Austrian poet Ingeborg Bachmann. She's one or maybe the most influential poet in Austria in the second half of the 20th century. We shot this film last year. The director is very well known. It's Margarete von Trotter, one of the most famous, I would say, European directors at our time. And Ingeborg Bachmann is played by Vicky Krieps, the actress from Corsage. So after playing the Empress Sissi, she's now going to play Ingeborg Bachmann, the Austrian poet. We are about to finish the film. It's going to have its premiere in 2023 and the release in cinemas in the German-speaking countries in autumn 2023. So that's a big international co-production that is going to come this year. We are also working on a documentary. It's called Vienna Calling, and that's a music documentary on the independent music scene in Vienna, based on this famous Falco song, Vienna Calling. And we are going to very deeply into the underground and independent music scene. Most of it German or Viennese in the Viennese language, because there is a strong dialect here. We are working on the next film by Evi Romain, Happy Land. Evi Romain has made the film Why Not You, that has won the Zurich Film Festival 3 years ago. And so we are developing this film. Then there are 2 more very important films. A film called Resistance, which is going to be directed by Buddy Mink, so the co-founder of Amour Fou. And that's a film about female resistance against fascism in the 1930s and 1940s in Europe. A story and history that is not really told, women fighting against the Nazi regime. And last but not least, talking about women, we are also developing the new film by Masoud Bakshi, an Iranian director who won the Sundance Award in 2020. And that is going to be a feature film on the role of women in Iran today.
Very powerful film, no doubt, to finish on there. So, Alexander, thank you very much for your time. Really lovely to meet you. Good luck with everything that you're doing with your films, and good luck with the overall tax incentive scheme. And obviously, TV producers are listening to this who want to get in touch with you. What's the process of unlocking this? Do they get in touch with local Chamber of Commerce, or presumably your local producer will have all of that knowledge?
Well, you need an Austrian local producer to apply. That's the general rule. There is the Austrian business agency Film in Austria. The international presentation outside of Austria of this new incentive will take place in Berlin at the Berlin Film Festival. And from now on, everybody can contact Film in Austria at the Austrian business agency. They can put you in contact. They can advise you. And there will be a website, but that takes some time, that is going to operate, where you can find possible partners in Austria. yeah, I mean, the next step is the Berlinale. So whoever joins the Berlin Film Festival, you are very welcome to contact us and to join the presentation. I think it's going to happen on Sunday at the Berlin co-production market at the European Film Market. I'm looking forward to the next steps for Austria's film and music industry.
Yeah, well, it sounds a very exciting time. So good luck with it all. Thank you very much, Alexander.
Thank you very much.
So it's always nice to bump into a fellow Brit when you're in another country and another country's trade event where it is a lot of domestic market delegates and attendees here. But I'm here with Tony Gregory. How are you, Tony?
Yeah, I'm good, actually. It's good to see you here. I've been living in Vienna 5 years now, so this is home now. And conversely, it's quite unusual to see so many faces from outside Austria at an Austrian industry event.
There are delegates from all around the world here, and they're all coming to look at the opportunity in Austria. Tell us about how you're involved in the Austrian industry and what you're doing here.
So most of my work still is international. I've worked internationally for many, many years. I mean, obviously directed many shows in the UK for a very long time, a lot of entertainment shows, trained directors, consultant, format consultant, and so on. I've done some work with Austrian production companies, but a lot of my work remains international. However, I started having conversations here over the last year or two with a colleague called Bernhard Hendling and the VKO, which is the organisation who've set up this event. And really, there's not as much going on here. There's not as much interaction between the Austrian production market and the international market as you might expect in other countries, other European countries. So what I mean by that is Austria doesn't buy many formats, and it certainly doesn't sell many. I mean, the K7 figures, which we revealed today, K7 did some work on this, and in the 12-month period of their report, the UK has done 2,500 format sales, and Austria did 1. And every way you look at that, that's an underperformance, actually. One of the reasons for that is quite straightforward. Austria's only had commercial television for 20 years. 2003 was the first commercial channel, whereas, you look at all the kind of format exporters around the world, so the UK, the US, the Netherlands, well, they've had commercial television since the 1950s. And so they're very mature markets. Over many decades, were looking for successful shows, so the big American quiz show surge from the 1970s onwards and so on. And of course, that never really happened here because there wasn't a kind of commercial market. It was just a state broadcaster, and that was it. I mean, there have been channels from other countries and so on. So in a way, it's kind of not surprising because it doesn't have the same history. You also have to think until about 30 years ago, Austria was surrounded on 2 to 3 sides by the Iron Curtain, and so was often the end of the line in a way. But the opportunities are absolutely huge. I mean, Austria is a country of 9 million people. They have a very, very good production sector. The standards are very, very high. I mean, when Austria does scripted productions, for example, absolutely international standard. And you think about the New Year's concert that comes out of Vienna every year. That's live to, I think, over 100 countries from ORF, the state broadcaster. So certainly there is a capability here.
And it's a very rich country as well, essentially, per capita versus lots of other territories in Europe, right, that perhaps are performing better from an international format sales perspective.
Well, that's true. And in the session this morning, we dug into that actually quite a bit. And there's some interesting sort of phenomena that go on. So if you look at countries like Belgium or Finland and so on, smaller countries that actually have to be really efficient and productive and produce higher standards on smaller budgets and with less resources than other countries. I mean, I directed The Voice of Ireland a number of years ago, and I remember us looking at the UK version of The Voice going, well, it'd be lovely if our show looks like this. We obviously didn't have the budget, but do you know what? I reckon our lighting was just as good and probably cost a fraction. And so there is a thing about the smaller countries having to work well to produce what the bigger countries can just throw money at, in a way. So there's a huge amount of opportunity here, and it's been an absolute pleasure to invite some international guests here from distributors such as All Three and Justin Scroggie, the format doctor, and consultants K7 and so on, to introduce to Austrian colleagues and just get the thought process going and get people to sort of think outside the box and change the thought patterns a bit. And there's a really positive reaction, I have to say, because you know what it's like. I mean, you know, you can get quite comfortable. Something works, it doesn't need changing. You repeat the pattern year after year. And so sometimes, you know, you do have to break out of that cycle of thinking. I think also, you know, if you look at other countries, so Belgium, for example, whether it's MIP, they have a Belgium stand and they present different companies, and the Creative Industries Department or whoever from the Belgian government get involved with that. They do the same IBC on the more technical side of production. You know, there isn't an Austrian stand at MIP, for example. And I think that there's huge potential. There's huge potential because there's some great capabilities here.
We were talking earlier on the fact that there is none of the super indies and the major production groups in Austria. And what's the reason for that? Because surely we're talking to lots of different people about, you know, new channels launching, new streamers launching here. That lots of people see the opportunity. I wonder why the Fremantles and the like aren't here.
Well, look, if you look at the countries where, you know, Fremantle or, you know, the Banijay Group, now Endemol is within that too, ITV International and so on. They've all got labels in a lot of countries, and some of those countries are quite a bit smaller than Austria. And there are none. There are none in Austria at all. There are none of the big kind of global networks of production companies here. I genuinely don't know why. Because the talent's here, the ideas are here, it needs a bit of work. And the other thing that's interesting as well is if you look at some of the phenomena that are sort of going on elsewhere, where Ireland has become a test market for Fox and some of Fox's formats and so on. You know, I think there's potential for Austria to form some international partnerships and do something interesting to start gearing up production, exporting ideas, exporting shows. There's definitely potential. When you consider things like the new tax incentives here and so on, I think if you look at that in the round, there are definitely opportunities. Countries are competing with each other to bring in production. And so the tax incentives are part of that. But you also have to look at the other business context. And as I say, I'm not a businessman as such, but, you know, you need to look for a country that's stable, with a good legal system, with well-educated workforce and an available workforce and a mobile workforce and so on.
And high technical standards.
And high technical standards, which Austria has. Austria's known internationally for its engineering. I mean, if you wanted a cable car system for your city, well, you know, you would probably go to an Austrian engineering company for your cable car system. So, but it comes to that sort of level of engineering, and that also comes from the education system. The other advantage Austria does have as well is it's one of the countries in Europe with the highest percentage of people that can hold a conversation in English. Now, if you're going to work internationally, that's vital and holds back a lot of other countries, actually. It's one of the barriers, you know, South Korea, for example, where the number of people who can hold a good level of English conversation, I mean, that's definitely a barrier when you're trying to collaborate internationally.
It does seem like there's lots of opportunity here. There's lots of conversations going on. Tony, I know you've got to dash into another panel session now, so thanks for stopping by and having a quick chat.
Thank you very much. See you later.
So my next guest at CIMIx here in Vienna is Dinah Czezik-Muller, Co-CEO and Executive Producer at Austrian factual indie Terra Mater Studios. How are you doing, Dinah?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Not at all. It was lovely to meet you and meet some real-life Austrian indies here at this really fascinating event. First of all, tell us a little bit about Terra Mater then and what you do and a little bit about your company.
So Terra Mater has been founded 10 years ago. In the meantime, time is running really fast. We have focused on natural history TV documentaries, so this is our core business, and it still is. Then we started with feature films, so we did some great and very successful feature films like Ivory Game and Sea of Shadows, for example, all internationally produced. Then we have also a format development department, and our latest baby, to put it that way, is our online channel. So we have a YouTube channel called Terra Mater, #Terra Mater. So the core team, actually, you might know them, is the former OF Universum team, Walter Köhler in the lead. So he has been the main founder of the company.
Well, I'm aware of the brand name, certainly, and I've passed by your stand at Sunny Side of the Dock and seen the name around at various different industry events. Tell us about some of the recent projects you've been working on at Terra Mater.
For example, Patrick and the Whale. It's a feature film. It's a wonderful story of a friendship of a human being with a whale. It's very nice to watch, especially in these days where you have lots of, news about war and, and inflation and so on. So it's, I think it's a very heartwarming story, nature-driven, and it shows us the beauty of the sea.
Okay, and is that factual or is that scripted?
It's factual. Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, fantastic. So a little bit like sort of, if you like My Octopus Teacher, is it along those?
It's very likely that you would like that film as well.
All right, okay, fantastic. Well, I love that. So that's that sounds like one for me. How does Terra Mater work on the distribution side then? Do you work with various different independent distribution businesses, or do you have your own in-house distribution? How does that work?
So we work internationally, means we, as any international working company, we're doing co-productions, we're doing pre-sales, and we also are working with Authentic for the post-sale business. So we like to be on the project from the beginning right to the end.
Yeah. We're here, obviously, at CIMIx in Vienna, in your hometown, and the town where your business is based, talking about the changes in the Austrian industry that the new tax incentive scheme is bringing in. But to give everybody a little bit of a flavour about the domestic Austrian industry, can you give us an idea of how the TV industry has developed in Austria and potentially what the changes might be after this new scheme has taken effect?
Austria tends to be a very small country. So therefore the TV business used to be very localized, in my opinion. And there are some companies that started to get into the international business because of also certainly getting additional monies in, and therefore a lot on documentaries, also fiction TV, less on that, I would think. So what the new subsidy and incentive means, I think it makes Austria even more attractive and maybe also a little bit more known, because I think it's a little bit of sleeping beauty. So we have lots of great creative talent here working on productions, but no one really knows about that. So I would hope that there is a little bit of a buzz going into the international business, also attracting companies coming here, because it's not only about TV productions, but also streamers. Now streaming productions can be subsidized, and as well as also service productions. VFX, this is also rather new. And at the same time, there is a green incentive on it, which I think is also rather new worldwide. Yeah, it's a matter of being, emphasizing a little more to really focus also on climate production that is not harming our climate. Yeah.
Now, my assumption is always that, tax incentive schemes are really sort of geared towards films and drama productions, but that's not necessarily the case, is it? Give us an example of how you may benefit as a business from the new scheme.
Well, actually, it depends also on the team that you're bringing with, but you may have an international topic that you would like to realize. And if you have, for example, you have an Austrian director and an Austrian team, so you need to spend some money here, obviously, but or you bring the post-production here. There are different ways now. It's in my opinion, it's bringing more flexibility into film production.
It seems to be quite a flexible scheme, doesn't it? It covers all of these different areas, and it seems to be, almost like a blanket deal, which you don't often see, I think, in a lot of tax incentive schemes in other countries. That it seems like the government has brought this in to really sort of supercharge the local industry.
it's so new that no one really knows how it will work out in the end. So we all need to learn. But I think it's a great way of bringing film production to Austria and also internationalize the Austrian production in the rest of the world.
So, for example, if you're pitching a documentary film or a series to a streamer or any international co-production partner, essentially this 30% rebate that they're offering, you could simply pitch that show for a third of the, 2/3 of the budget, if you like, essentially. I mean, is that how it will work with you in practice?
I think you would pitch it for the whole budget, but you could bring some money in. So if the money is spent in Austria, then you could probably bring 30% in, yeah, or even 35% if you are green. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're obviously talking about tax incentives and ways to bolster the industry. Now, we're at a time where we're in January, we're looking towards the rest of the year, and certainly a lot of the press that we've seen in the last couple of weeks looking ahead to 2023 is, I don't say necessarily negative, but we know a lot of the research that's come out is showing that, streamers are stabilizing their content investments. And I think we already know that a lot of the broadcasters' budgets are certainly not increasing. If anything, they're decreasing as viewing habits change again. And we're also seeing, an advertising slowdown as well. We're seeing a crunch when it comes to consumer spending and a recession. So, with all of those headwinds and all those things in mind, how are you preparing your business for the year ahead? And on a practical basis, how do you plan and mitigate those challenges that everyone's facing?
Certainly our production cycles are very long, which means that we are at the moment preparing for productions that might go on air in 3-4 years. So it's a very long time spent. But for this year, I think for this year and probably also next year, co-production will be getting more and more important. So it's about the network. It's coming together to realize projects that meet more audience than just the local one. That's one thing which we have always been doing. So that's we will proceed. And we are very happy to have good partners and good relationships in the whole world, actually.
So co-productions are really going to become the norm, I think. Obviously within natural history programming, that's nothing new. But
exactly.
Do you think that it might be a case of, whereas you might have had 3 partners coming together to produce a show, you might be maybe looking at 5 now? Yeah.
That could well be. Yeah, that could well be. So also the topic of versioning, I think it's about flexibility at the same time as being a reliable partner. That's very important, and I think trust is a main driver in trust and quality in times that are challenging. I think. Yeah.
And particularly in natural history market as well, where there's trust is probably more important in your sector than many others.
Could well be, yeah. And the other thing is that documentary has changed a little bit in terms of there needs to be a little bit, maybe more than it used to be, it's about telling an additional story. So it's not just pure the factual, but it's also in kind of adding some emotional aspect to it, even more than it used to be. So I think that's changing a little bit because people want to watch shows where they can engage and where they might take some additional emotions out of, not just information.
Okay, so they're maybe taking cues from drama, the way that dramas are potentially...
I think the storytelling is getting more emotional in these times. I think that's something that we can see. Yeah.
Thinking about natural history production, COVID and the pandemic had a really big effect on this sector, as obviously all sectors, but perhaps it hit natural history harder because of the locations needed and the travel needed, or it used to be the case that the production team would be flying all over the world and into various exotic locations. And has your production process changed when it comes to natural history since the pandemic?
Luckily, we were not hit too much by the pandemic in this sense. Also, we used to work working with teams on the spot. So
Local crews,
teams, yeah. We only had one production where we had a little bit of troubles, which was in India, due also to our good cooperations with local teams, local producers. I think this is something that's also the green aspect with it, that brings the green aspect, which is a good way of producing.
And looking ahead to events and markets this year, where will you be present? Will you be at MIP TV, for example? Will you be at Sunnyside? Give us a bit of a rundown of where we might see you on the exhibition floor around.
So the next one is Berlinale, because we are also doing feature. So Berlinale, then is MIP, then will be Sunnyside, Cannes, in the middle of it. So the Marché du Film, the Sunnyside, and then MIPCOM. So we are attending all the festivals and all the markets. So it is a good chance that we meet again.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Dinah, thank you so much for spending time with us. Good luck with everything. And I may be asking you a few tips on the hot spots in Vienna and where.
Warmly welcome.
All right. Brilliant. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So we're now into the hubbub of the event. Lots of delegates moving between different sessions. There's lots of different tracks of content going on here. And I'm here with a broadcaster. It wouldn't be complete without speaking to a Austrian broadcaster at CIMIx. So I'm here with Philipp Böechheimer, Managing Director of CANAL Austria. Philipp, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks for having me.
Not at all. Lovely to see you. Tell us a little bit about the broadcast landscape in Austria. Can you give our listeners who perhaps aren't aware of, how that broadcast landscape looks like from a domestic perspective?
If you're talking to me, you're actually talking to probably one of, like the last one or the newest one to the party in Austria. So we just launched with CANAL Plus in March last year. So our first birthday is only a couple of weeks in front of us. So CANAL Plus launched an on-demand streaming service and operates as a local Austrian streaming provider. We also do have linear channel called CANAL Plus First. CANAL Plus First is, as I said, like the newest addition to Austrian media landscape, broadcasting the variety of channels in Austria. And yeah, I think if we talk about the history of broadcasting, we'll probably start with public television, ORF1 and ORF2. And then I personally think I do have kind of a bit of a connection to private TV in German-speaking territories, because when I'm born in 1982, and this was in the 80s or late 80s or 90s is when private television started in Germany, and we also started receiving this in Austria. All the German private channels came to Austria with being available, and then I think it's been quite a slow and steady growth with new channels, new private channels coming to the media landscape, and CANAL Plus is the latest addition to that. I would say.
So there must be good business to be made then if you're launching a linear channel as well as your digital offerings. What's your USP then for Austrian viewers?
I think you would not only launch a linear channel in 2022, or because I think a linear channel in itself would not be probably hard to be profitable, or probably hard to have a long-term perspective. I think our main asset and what we're bringing to the Austrian media market is the CANAL Plus streaming service. That's also pretty much the new thing. You had for sure all the global players available in Austria. With CANAL Plus, we now have a local Austrian streaming provider doing business in Austria, out of Austria, with an Austrian team sitting in Vienna, creating the product, curating it, making licensing content for Austrian audience, but also, with our channel. The channel is an addition to our portfolio. There are a lot of plans for the future.
Yeah. So you must have an incredibly large catalogue from a CANAL Plus perspective, a library to bring to the market, but also you're saying it's being curated as well, specifically for this market. Are you also commissioning original content here in Austria?
We're definitely with having Studio CANAL as part of our like Vivendi and a conglomerate and like CANAL Plus and the connection to CANAL Plus friends. We do have access to the great library that Studio CANAL has, but for sure we will also want to produce original content. We do for factual, on a factual side and non-scripted. We did start producing original content out of Austria. We do have, for instance, also 2 weekly formats on our channel. It's a music magazine, actually the only music magazine remaining in Austria, and
music's big here. I'm getting the feeling that there's a strong and very healthy music scene here in Austria.
I'm not a music industry expert, but from a consumer perspective, I would say like it's really growing. There are a lot of young new artists out of Austria for last 5-7 years that really have a success not only in Austria but also in Germany and other outside of it, with German language music.
So in terms of opportunities for international distribution companies and producers to perhaps sell shows into CANAL Plus Austria, first of all, you've only just launched, I realise, so it's sort of early days, but are you looking to the international market to acquire content specifically for your market?
I mean, we're really licensing exclusive content for Austria. There's a new show that, I mean, we do have, for instance, the English with Emily Blunt exclusively available since or now in January as our monthly highlight.
And that's very new, right? That's only actually come out internationally last month, I think.
It's a really great series. We do have a Spy Among Friends series with Guy Pearce. Spy series we'll have as a highlight in February, exclusive on our channel. And we're also licensing more and more exclusive Austrian content. At the moment, there's not that much series content that is like available for licensing. On the movie side, definitely. So there's a great Austrian sci-fi movie called Rubicon that has an incredible production value, I would say, that like really with Austrian budget, it's a production that has the looks of a way higher budget than you would, like an international budget, you would say. And this one we have exclusively on our channel, and especially Austrian movies is something that is part of content history for Austria, and there's a lot of beloved movies that Austrians like to watch, and we have them.
Are you responsible for acquiring that content, or is your role as managing director, presumably you're overseeing a team that also acquires?
There's a dedicated team really focusing on all aspects of content in our organization. There's content experts on selecting and curating and really creating the product from an editorial side. For sure, there's content acquisitions for then licensing and all the legal parts, and these are really core assets that we do have in Austria. Yeah, also need to run the business to create really an Austrian product.
What about formats? I mean, will you ever be in the business of adapting, big game show formats, for example, or any sort of big Saturday night shows exclusively for CANAL Plus, or is that a little way off?
It's not on our radar at the moment because it's something like this really big Saturday night shows, something you expect really from linear broadcasters. We're not really looking into it, but never say never, I would say. From a streaming content perspective, I think big shows, it's not the main thing that people expect. But I think a couple of years ago, you also did not expect that like stand-up comedy shows would be something that you would find on a streaming service, and you do now. So I would say, let's also see where the market for streaming content develops.
Yeah, because the market is changing incredibly quickly, right? And
it would be boring otherwise.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's interesting. You're launching a channel at the same time as there's a cost of living crisis, there's a recession, there's advertising downturn, there is various different headwinds. Let's say, it's obviously a challenging market as a new streamer and a linear broadcaster in Austria. How can you adapt to those changing markets, because things are changing very, very quickly?
Yeah, I think at the moment, we all would say that let's hope for a quick change for the good again. I mean, looking at especially at the political situation, economically, I would say we're building up here. It's not something that needs to go explode in 1 year. We're constantly building. We just introduced really a very successful media brand, worldwide media brand, to a new market in Austria that is not very limited known in Austria, but we're in a good way to change that, and there's so much homework to do to be successful, and then hopefully also the overall economic situation turns for the good for all of us.
Absolutely.
Inflation goes down again.
We're here obviously to talk about this new tax incentive scheme and the changes that are happening within the Austrian industry that the government has just brought in on January the 1st. So how will that affect you, if at all, as a new streamer and a linear channel in the market?
I mean, in general, it's an indirect effect because it's a new system that is funding for production companies, but for sure we have a huge and a great effect for content creation, new formats, new productions, and it just makes life easier for Austrian production industry, and therefore also for us that we can benefit from it. Can't say a lot negative about that. I think it's really positive. And surprisingly, I think it has been talked for quite some time. But when the news spread last year, mid last year, I would say that it's going to be there. And then now that it's beginning of 2023, it's really already in place or almost.
It seems to have been implemented very quickly,
doesn't
it? Over a few
weeks. Very un-Austrian. I think everyone's a bit surprised about it, how that it really came that fast, and we were able to get things on the floor. But really great.
Well done. It's not often you hear politicians turning things around quickly and being so proactive and doing things so effectively. So maybe a few other countries, maybe near to my home, could take note of that a little bit.
Yeah, and also, I mean, if you look now, I think they also really thought about the environment aspect and impact of it. It's also has been thought about. Not the worst example compared to other aspects where we talk about or think about improvements from a legal side, where the environmental aspect has not been considered.
Yeah, it seems to have gone sort of a bit under the radar, disappeared. When we were all in lockdown, we were talking about the environment, and we're not going to go back to how we were before. We're not going to be taking those flights. We're not going to be going all over and going to so many markets and visiting buyers around the world. But that seems to now have receded into the past quite quickly. And if anything, people are maybe travelling a little bit more and perhaps, focusing much more on, understandably, about doing business as well as they can, and less about the environmental message.
If you look how people try to maybe quit smoking or drinking, and how fast some of them are back to it, then there's not a huge surprise that like our habits came back that fast. really unfortunately.
That's a nice analogy. It's like dry January, right?
Yeah.
It was the
it's a dry COVID. Yeah. Hope is, I think, that the only thing we can have at the moment, because there's not really proof of any real good signs.
No, not yet. I think that's only going to come around by public action, and that's what broadcasters are great at, right? Changing public opinion. So, hopefully we'll all get back onto that agenda a little bit more and try and affect change over the coming months and years. Let's see. Well, on that hopeful note, Philipp, thank you very much for having a chat with me.
Pleasure all mine. Thanks a lot.
Good luck with the channel and the streaming service in Austria, and I'll keep my eyes peeled for how you're doing in the future.
Yeah, well, we can do an update in a couple of months and years.
Let's do that. All right. Thanks, Philipp.
Thanks a lot.
So any show that we're talking about tax incentives and opportunities for international co-production wouldn't be complete without speaking to a scripted producer, a local scripted producer. And I'm here with Isabelle Welter. Isabelle, you are a scripted production company based in Vienna. Tell us about your business and some of the productions you've worked on.
Well, we founded that company 5 years ago. I founded it together with a writer-director, so we are basically content-driven.
And it's We Film.
It's We Film, yes. It's like 1, 2, 3, We, and it's WH is Welter Henning. These are the initials of our last name, so it's a combination of that. I'm based in Vienna since 2002. And I used to work for another company as a drama producer, employee, and as executive producer. But a couple of years ago, I felt the need to get out of the wheel, of the production wheel. So we started our own production company, trying to develop content that we think should be told. It's all about fiction. It's about TV series, feature films, and TV movies. We try to go out of Austria, so we do a lot of international co-production. We work with the German broadcasters, ZDF, ARD, also the private broadcasters. We are developing a lot of event series right now. We just launched feature film together with another Austrian company with a very named young director, Adrian Geuginger. Merzengrund was his second feature film. It ran pretty well in Austrian cinema. And we now have in line another feature film project that is just in the funding institutions right now. And we'll see what's going to happen. And it will be, it's placed in Moldavia. We will work with an Ukrainian director. It's going to be a very, very exciting project. This is what we do right now for feature films. And then we work together with a lot of German and Austrian companies as co-producers. So we come with our content to the other producers and do co-production. But we are not a development house. We are producers, but we stay small and flexible and agile with all our projects. And then we do the financing together.
So you've obviously had a certain amount of success over the past 5 years with setting up your own business. What are the barriers to further international success for you, and how does this new incentive in the Austrian market change the game for you?
It changes it a lot because the last 15 years we were limited in financing international co-production on the television market, and especially for the streamers, because we were not allowed to apply for streaming products. So now this is open for us. It's open for everybody who is based in Austria and is producing in Austria or doing co-productions with Austria and other European countries. And it has no financial limit. So this is really a game changer for us. And this makes us, our market more attractive for everyone, for streamers. And it's a great opportunity for small production content-driven companies, because we are just, basically it's just a new opportunity in financing.
So will that affect you on a practical basis in terms of the number of projects you're taking to market, for example? Or is it just going to open the opportunity to speaking to more people about...
It's both.
Yeah, right.
The most important thing is that we can talk about bigger budgets. If you bring financing about 30, 35 or 40%, this is a lot. You're more interesting for partners all over Europe, because we were almost the last country to imply something like, it's not a real tax incentive. It's an incentive, but it's the biggest advantage of that program is you get your money not like 2 years after, but you get, when you sign the contract, you get the first slate, and then when you are finished with it, then you get the rest of your money. So you're not have to prove all your expenses and wait for the tax rebate to come back. So we are like in a more classical funding structure or subsidy structure.
Yeah. And that 35% with the green 5% green bonus that we've mentioned in the show already, I mean, that almost represents a broadcaster, if you like. You know,
yes.
their amount of investment. If you had 3 broadcasters as co-producers or 3 partners as co-producers, that's really significant, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And the most important thing is that we keep the rights. So we just give them away for a couple of years, and we have our share in the rights, and we keep them, and then we can work with the rights after 7 or 10 years.
Right.
And we can sell them again. And this is really, because I think the most important thing that we should do is keep our IP. So, yeah.
So for potential partners who may be listening to the show, who are now thinking about maybe taking Austria a little bit more seriously as a location, what would you say to any potential international partners on the scripted side listening to this?
Well, the door is open. Come in.
All right. Okay.
Some limits we often had in Austria, that it would be too specifically Austrian concerning content. So, but I think local content is very important, and it should sell internationally. If the story goes to the heart and you tell it, it doesn't matter if it plays or if it takes place in Vienna or in Strasbourg or in Birmingham, I think.
Yeah, and we've seen all of those local stories become big hits internationally.
Yes.
Particularly through the likes of Netflix and other streamers that have brought these stories to wider international audiences. The sort of content that you're looking for and the IP that you're sourcing locally, are you working with Austrian writers then? Or
yes, we do, but internationally too. We have one project, a TV event. We will be co-producing, and we will be shooting in November, December. This is 2 German co-producers, ZDF, Arte, a lot of German subsidies, and we will be like the final financing partners. And this is the only kind of service production we do, but we are totally part of the development process. So this is, for us, this is also very interesting. We don't only develop and produce our own projects, so we work together. So if somebody comes from outside and says, would you be interested in this TV movie? Are you interested in the story? And we say, yes, this is something we would like to go with and tell that and produce that together, then it's also a possibility.
All right, Isabelle. Well, thank you so much for spending 10 minutes with us. I know there's lots of drinks events going on. There's lots of things going on this evening as all these international delegates come together and look at the opportunity. So thanks for spending time. Isabelle from WeFilm, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Now, another event happening in January is the biggest non-scripted international industry seminar that is Realscreen. And I'm joined by Realscreen Content Director and Editor-in-Chief, Barry Walsh, as we look ahead to what the 25th anniversary has got in store for the factual content industry. Welcome back to TellyCast, Barry.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're looking ahead to what the 25th anniversary has in store for the factual content industry for the first Realscreen in person in January since 2020. So, Barry, it's great to be back, I'm sure, in person.
It is. I mean, we did the first kind of summer summit in Dana Point in California about 6 months ago, back in June. That was essentially because we knew that people were kind of jonesing, to use a North American colloquialism, jonesing to get together and do business. And that was great, but we've been wanting to get to Austin for a while now. And so now that's actually going to happen.
That's right. So it's the first Realscreen in person since New Orleans, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Austin, Texas, I've never been there. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to donning a 10-gallon hat and seeing if I can
Bring your
get
appetite as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Barbecue. Everybody's getting ready for the barbecues over there. So tell us about the latest then for preparations for this 25th anniversary summit, Barry.
Well, I mean, yeah, as you say, it's the 25th anniversary. So we've been really trying to not just kind of reflect the past 25 years in the nonfiction and unscripted business, but also definitely look forward and also take stock of the moment that we're in now. Certainly, it's not a secret that it's a kind of a tumultuous time in the entertainment industry, and the unscripted nonfiction world has definitely been impacted by that. And so we're trying to tailor the content to give delegates as much practical intelligence as we can concerning these challenges, and on the flip side, the opportunities that might exist within them, and hopefully give people the ammunition to kind of come out successful on the other side of 2023. So a lot of the content is geared towards that, but also, we've kind of mixed it up a little bit this year with some things that we haven't done in a while. We've got a little bit of a game show that's going to be happening. So You Think You Know Unscripted with the inimitable Phil Fairclough as the MC. So that should be a lot of fun. And a couple of case studies. We've got a case study of what is probably the most successful franchise in unscripted television, the Real Housewives franchise. So we'll have some key players there to talk about the evolution of that brand.
Right.
And kind of a born at Realscreen story, which we've asked people to kind of submit their stories of projects that might have gotten off the ground at Realscreen. One of those projects was an 80s and history series, Alone, which is a big hit for that network, but also it's interesting now that it's become kind of an international format. It's gaining more and more traction, and it all started at the Realscreen Summit. So we're going to have a deep dive into that as well.
There's certainly going to be no shortage of things to discuss. As you say, everybody's looking forward to this year. There's a little bit of excitement. There's a little bit of trepidation, I think. There's lots of talk of mergers and acquisitions. There's lots of talk of networks having less money to spend. There's lots of talk about new players in fast. Tumultuous, I think, is a good word to use for how people are looking at the year, and obviously coming to Austin to try and figure out how they can navigate it. You talked us through a couple of the new things, a couple of the new the highlights of what delegates can expect at the end of the month. So what else is different? Tell us a little bit about the venue, and tell us about where it's located, and a little bit about Austin itself for those who haven't been.
Yeah, well, I mean, Austin is an entertainment and cultural hub, I guess, in America, in the southern United States, and has been the home to South by Southwest, of course, for I believe since its inception. And for the music aficionados out there, an incredible music scene as seen through things like Austin City Limits and whatnot. And so, like you, I have not been there myself, and I missed out on South by Southwest all these years. So I'm actually quite looking forward to going, and I'm going to bring some earplugs because I do plan to check out some music while I'm there. Yeah, the location itself, the JW Marriott, is very central, and lots of great restaurants and establishments, shall we say, drinking establishments and eating establishments within walking distance. I won't say stumbling distance. I will say walking distance. And it's a great hotel, and there's going to be a lot of, with this year's event, we actually did kind of try to have more structured networking opportunities than we have had in past summits. So there is going to be more opportunities for structured networking, and not just with network buyers or platforms, but also given the state of the industry now, most people are saying that co-production is going to be paramount for the year ahead and perhaps for the next couple of years. And so we want to kind of bring producers together. We did have a program that we started a few years back called Pitching Partners, and we've given more opportunities within that program for producers to meet with potential production partners to try to get projects off the ground. We also have this thing called slow pitching, which I don't know if you, I guess you wouldn't have that in England, but
No, I haven't come across slow pitching, but I'm interested to hear more. Is it just as it seems? Is it much more relaxed? Is it executives on a on a laid down sofa pitching to each other in?
I wish it was like that, but no, in North America we have like baseball and fast pitch and slow pitch. So I guess it's kind of a play on words, but really what it is a little bit more pitching time. So I think typically our speed pitching things are a few minutes, and we've elongated that somewhat by a couple of extra minutes to give a little bit more opportunity for people to work in more within their pitches because people were asking for it. So we figured we'd try it out. So this will be the first year that we do the slow pitching.
Right. Okay. And it's interesting what you're saying about more time for networking, because I think one thing that I picked up on over the last few months, and certainly throughout 2022, a lot of the industry events, there's so many people I personally have met in person for the first time, having worked with them for, year to 2-3 years in some cases. So I think there's going to be a lot of people not only wanting to meet each other from a co-production perspective and seeing how they can figure things out together and do business together, but also people that have already been doing business for a significant amount of time through a webcam, So I think people are really going to savor the opportunity to make those connections and sort of, reinvigorate the industry in the way that it really was pre-pandemic.
Yeah. And we definitely saw that in June at Dana Point, and I'm sure you've seen it at some of the events that you've been to in the UK and in Europe, now that people are actually able to get back together. I mean, granted, there's, I think, across the board, be it our event, be it, the larger things like the MIPS or whatnot, everybody's still kind of in comeback mode. And so, the numbers are at probably 80% or whatever of what they would have been pre-pandemic at present. But I think that's kind of universally true across the board, it seems to be. I think those who are making the trip are really going to enjoy themselves and really going to get a lot out of it. And I think those who aren't making the trip this year will probably hear some good word about it and make the trip next year. But it is as we all know, it's a very unpredictable climate out there in terms of just dealing with the pandemic. But I think maybe knocking on every wooden surface, maybe we've turned a corner on that to a degree. And
I hope so. And how about delegate numbers? Can you share any of that information? You said about 80%, but can you give us more of a feel for that? And also how that splits down between domestic US and Canada, the UK, Australia, Europe, because it is a very international event, isn't it?
It is a very international event. And in terms of the numbers, as I say, we're probably at this point, we're tracking at about 1,200 to 1,300 delegates, which, as I say, is probably roughly around 80% of what we would have been at, maybe 2020 or 2019. In terms of the international breakdown, we can always count on the UK to send a good, strong contingent. Obviously, working with PACT and UK Indies, we have those relationships, and we greatly appreciate the support. And so that's not any different this year. We always have a very strong Canadian contingent, Australia networks and producers coming through. This year, we've got, I think, some folks from Korea kind of making the trip. I think as the years have gone by and as the industry has kind of embraced more, content from more territories, and not necessarily English-speaking content, but international content, foreign language content. I think that has a great kind of knock-on effect for an event like ours, because we'll have some territories that might not have been fully represented in previous years making their way down. India, I think we're going to see some folks coming in. Europe, France, we can always count on folks coming, both again on the network and production side. Yeah, it's the traditional mixed bag, but we are starting to see it open up a little bit more. And I think particularly we'll see that continue with Asian territories and perhaps MENA territories as well. Yeah, so it's good. I mentioned kind of the foreign language content, but I think the international co-production thing is really, I think, top of mind, not only for delegates, but also for us at the event. And
yes.
So whatever we can do to help facilitate that and kind of make those opportunities or help facilitate those opportunities.
And let's not forget, obviously, that the US of A is the world's biggest content industry market by some measure. So certainly know with speaking to, lots of indies, they're really keen to get over and speak to a lot of the US networks that they may not have the chance to speak to face throughout the year. And I think at the last count, there was about 80 different commissioning broadcasters in the States. I don't know if that's still the case. Perhaps a few have dropped out, linear broadcasters and cable guys, but maybe they've been replaced by some new buyers. And that's a good point. Are there any new buyers you're seeing coming this year that perhaps represents the changing nature of the industry over the last 3 years since there was the last physical Realscreen? Are we seeing any new buyers coming to Austin, Barry?
As you mentioned, on the linear side, there's been so much consolidation that buyers that we would have had a couple of years back, HBO Max, unfortunately not going to be there. There's definitely been some change in that area. But, we're seeing certainly on the streaming side, on the SVOD and AVOD and FAST side, we're seeing more pickup there. And it's interesting on the SVOD side, everybody does kind of think of the global behemoths, the Netflixes and Amazons and Apples of the world. But there are also, especially for this genre, there are some niche platforms that are very interested in acquiring content. You can think of ones like CuriosityStream that kind of come top of mind, even within the doc space specifically. There are several smaller ones that are still serving audiences and still have, acquisition budgets that they're interested in using. You're also seeing an interesting development in terms of brands kind of becoming publishers, kind of becoming content hubs. And, it could be a Peloton, or it could be another brand that's kind of moving into a content space and wants to have a production partner to work with. So in situations where the linear outlook or even on the streaming outlook, there are people saying content spends will be going down across the board. So while that may be the case with some of the established players, I think people should probably look to widen their scope and broaden their opportunities and perhaps investigate some of these other buyers that are emerging that kind of might be out of left field a little bit, but that are actively looking for content. And somewhere along the line, they got wind of us. So some of them are going to be in Austin as well.
Well, that's a good tip. Have a get in on the delegate page, and everybody's listed on there, aren't they? If you're a delegate, you can see everybody who's going to be coming along. What about your personal pick of the summit? Now, this is obviously you put this together, Barry. You had the whole editorial strategy and the programming. But what's your personal favorite session that you're looking for in Austin?
Well, Justin, it's like asking me to choose a favorite child. No, I'm just kidding. We always try to make the content as robust as possible. One naturally kind of gravitates towards the keynotes, I suppose. And this year, I think it'll be very interesting. We're going to have Kathleen Finch from Warner Brothers Discovery, probably doing what I would think is going to be her first big kind of keynote interview since a lot of the changes have been going on at Warner Brothers Discovery. So I think that will be very interesting to hear kind of what the strategy is for unscripted and nonfiction going forward with WBD. And Alex Gibney, I'm very excited to see the Alex Gibney keynote. We're inducting him into our Realscreen Hall of Fame, as well as Eli Holtzman and Aaron Seidman out of Sony Pictures Television Nonfiction, and Bree Frank of Who You Know, which is a kind of a media resource organization aimed at kind of broadening, I guess, the scope of employment and letting people know that there are, especially in this time when we really want to have a more inclusive and diverse industry, that there is a wider pool of folks to choose from that perhaps people weren't aware of before 2020. So we're honoring her as well. Back to Gibney. I'm really looking forward to hearing what he has to say. He's obviously one of my favorite documentarians and certainly never afraid to shy away from the big topics. And so I'll be very interested to hear what he has to say about what he's got coming up.
Very good. Well, that's certainly on my must-attend list as well. And I should say, just before we wrap up, Barry, congratulations to Brunico on the acquisition of NatP, which is obviously a venerable US market and long-established event that also has traditionally taken place in January in Florida. So congratulations on that. Anything you can tell us? Anything you can... any little snippets you can give us an idea of when we're thinking about 2024 already, looking forward to January and what NatP might bring us next year?
Well, boy, let's see. What can we say? It's still early days. The deal was announced kind of top of the year. And so a lot of the fine tuning is still happening and a lot of the details are still being ironed out. But I do know that in terms of our CEO, Russell Goldstein, I know his intention is to get things up and running for NatP Budapest and for NatP Global in 2024. Location, I think, is still TBD for that. As I say, we're still ironing out details, but those details will be shared when they're available. But we're all super excited. I mean, it's a great way to kick off the year. And as you say, once the deal was announced, we were kind of flooded with congratulations. I think, again, it was a situation where people want that institution. People want that ability to meet and to do business, and to kind of give it another lease in life is a wonderful thing. And we're all super excited.
You know you're going to get flooded with questions about it as well when you're in Austin. So, maybe it's going to be a no comment all the way as you're charging from stage to stage. Barry, thank you so much for joining us. Really looking forward to seeing you. And one of the things I'm going to do, I was thinking, what do you do in Austin? I did a bit of Googling, and there's this extraordinary bat colony that lives under the bridge, right? Which is just next to my hotel, which is kind of scary to think there's over 1 million these bats that everybody comes to see take to the sky every evening. That's going to be a bit weird. Kind of looking forward to that.
I will definitely swing by to check out the bats.
Yes, yeah. I'll be checking out lots of the nightlife, other types of nightlife as well. I'm sure, as you say, there's lots of institutions to choose from there. Barry, thanks again. Good luck with your final preparations for the 25th edition of Realscreen. And tell everybody the dates. It's a JW Marriott, isn't it?
JW Marriott in downtown Austin, and the dates are January 23rd to the 26th.
Fantastic. And you can still buy tickets. They're on the website, so go there for any last-minute ticket buys. Barry, good luck. I'll see you in Austin.
Cheers.
Well, that's about it from Vienna. I hope you enjoyed the show. Next week, we're in Austin, Texas for the 25th Realscreen Summit, where we'll be meeting the movers and shakers of the global factual content industry. This telecast was recorded in Vienna and edited by Ian Chambers. Until next week, stay safe.